Alright, back on some more Subnautica today, and well, I wanted to talk about Subnautica 2, and specifically what I think Subnautica 2 can learn from Subnautica and Below Zero. Both Subnautica games at their core are simply just survival games, with a little bit of sandbox sprinkled in, and they both have a story narrative. The difference between the two is Subnautica, of course, has an unguided story, and Below Zero has a guided story. And that one reason is why a lot of people, including myself, are so split on the two games. Subnautica and Below Zero are pretty much the same game when it comes down to core mechanics. And they are so similar that I would argue that honestly, Below Zero should have just been a DLC. Subnautica does beat Below Zero in a lot of other aspects. If you take a look at the Subnautica map, it is a pretty large map, especially in comparison to Below Zero's map. But what makes Below Zero's map feel even smaller is that a large portion, pretty much a third of the map, is actually part of the land. And of course, the depth of the map itself is nowhere near as deep as Subnautica. The other way Subnautica beats Below Zero, of course, is the Leviathans. There is really no comparison. I mean, just from design and especially sound design alone, they absolutely destroy the Below Zero's Leviathans. Below Zero's Leviathans miss the mark on both kind of the intimidation factor, but also the horror aspect. And of course, the last thing Subnautica definitely does better than Below Zero is the vehicles. Below Zero made the choice of basically getting rid of the Cyclops and Seamoth and trying to combine them into one vehicle. But personally, I think this failed. The Sea Truck not only is extremely slow in comparison to the Seamoth, but it also just lacks that feeling of being inside the Cyclops. And of course, this is due to the fact that Subnautica Below Zero is a smaller map. Therefore, they couldn't fit the Cyclops, so they decided to create the Sea Truck. So, what can Subnautica 2 do better than both of these games? Well, the biggest improvement, I think personally, is actually going to be the AI of the creatures, especially the hostile creatures, which we know from the devlogs that the Collector Leviathan is actually going to be pretty intelligent. So already a big improvement there. The next big improvement, of course, is going to be the map. Now, we know, at least from what we've heard, that the Subnautica 2 map is going to be more vast than even Subnautica 1. So if this does become reality, it is going to be a good improvement, and that is because it leads to better vehicles. When you have a larger map, it allows you to first create vehicles that are faster, which then leads to being able to create Leviathans that are more aggressive, that are faster, that are smarter, right? Because you have a vehicle that is more capable. So a lot of the improvements do tie into how the map is created. The bigger the map, the deeper the map, the more biomes the map has, the faster vehicles can be, and then that allows you to make better enemies in the game. And I think the Tadpole is probably one of the best vehicles they've made in theory. It is a small, nimble, quick vehicle that then allows you to attach things sort of like the Sea Truck, but it doesn't allow you to create a vehicle that is a jack of all trades. And of course, something I've already talked about is the building. We know that the building in Subnautica 2 is going to be much better. Already a big improvement there. It would seem, at least to me, that the devs have learned from both Subnautica and Below Zero and are putting their best foot forward. There, of course, is also going to be the basically bio-DNA, bioengineering system that was originally scrapped in the first game, which hopefully gives us something like a skill tree. Will actually give us kind of a progression system in Subnautica, which would be pretty cool. Something that Subnautica has always lacked is once you complete the game, there's not really that much to do, you kind of lack replayability a little bit because pretty much every playthrough is going to be relatively similar from each other. Now, when it comes to the game's story, it would seem that we are landing on a moon of a gas giant that we were not planning on landing. And of course, there does seem to be some sort of higher intelligence on this moon that will tie into the story, most likely interact with us. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to go over. Expectations wise, I am really hoping that we get new and improved Subnautica, of course, that maybe brings in a little more difficulty. Biggest thing I can hope for out of this game is that it reinstalls that sense of wonder that the first game had and the fear of the unknown. Now, I've already seen quite a few people complain that this game is coming out as early access. I get it. A lot of games recently have been coming out as early access, which leads into issues with consoles because, for instance, Sony doesn't even allow early access games. But you do have to remember that Subnautica and Below Zero both started in early access, and I'd argue that Subnautica 2 is probably going to be in a more complete state than definitely Subnautica 1 or Below Zero were when they were launched in early access. I mean, I remember there weren't even any Leviathans in Subnautica 1 early access, and I do remember Below Zero having just a lot of storyline changes. And of course, you have to remember that this is not going to be a live service game. So once the game is finished, it's complete. So having something like an early access kind of brings you along with the journey to experience the game develop, which I personally enjoy. Oh.
A quantum detonation has occurred in the Aurora's drive core.
But yeah, anyway, I've been consumed by this game for the past few months, and I've definitely been waiting for it for almost a decade at this point. This is among one of the most hyped launches for me personally, and I see it being pretty much one of the most hyped on the Steam wish list, at least. This is really up there with something like GTA 6 for me. So I'm excited, and I cannot wait to play this game in a few days from now. But yeah.